I'm feeling really tired today, and the weather's irritating me because,
Why is the
like,
weather irritating you?
one minute it's sunny and blue sky, and then the next minute it's downpour torrential rain, and I am like, it's September. I'm ready to recluse. I'm ready to hibernate, light the fire, cozy vibes, and it keeps being interrupted by the sunshine.
You're
I'm like,
actually annoyed at the remaining sunshine.
I don't mind the sunshine when it's the summer, and I don't mind necessarily like in the winter when it's cold and it's frosty. But it's this transition period where you're like, make your mind up, make a decision, because I have to leave the house in the morning with 8 different outfits because I don't know what I may or may not need. That grates on me more than
See,
it should
I'm the
today. Today,
opposite. Really enjoying the transition period of it because I really love that feeling of like moving between summer and autumn, where you can just feel like
can feel the air
air
change, can't
changing,
you?
like you
Yeah,
can feel it happening in real time.
yeah.
When you go out, you can smell it, and it just feels different. And I'm like, yeah, I really like it.
See, I think because I'm feeling a bit all over the place in my world, I'm like, I need something that's somewhat grounding. And apparently that's become the weather. And the fact that it's not consistent is probably like grating on me more than it should.
So
You know,
really, you're taking it out on the
I
weather.
am. It's a projection. It's really nothing to do with the weather. It's all me.
Anyway, what are we talking about today, Katie?
We are going to talk about satisfaction.
Yes, which ties well to our actual weather theme because I'm satisfied with the weather and you're
And
not,
I am
Katie.
not. I just wonder how you're going to tie that in. I'm impressed.
Thank you. Been a while since I found a segue like that, so I'm proud of
It's
that.
true. That's true.
Mhm.
I have made countless notes.
Is there a lot you want to talk about on this one?
Oddly enough, like considering because this was your idea, Becca, this was a topic that you chose that you then text me saying, what was the topic I chose again? Thank God I
So
wrote
I
it
chose
down.
this topic because actually, when Sarah came on the podcast and we talked about permission,
Mm.
I prepared for that episode thinking it was satisfaction. So I turned up and was like, oh, I completely thought about different things beforehand. So I said, oh, let's do satisfaction when we record, and then forgot we were recording it and had to ask you.
Thank goodness I wrote it down.
Let's delve in then. Place that I thought would be good to start is what satisfaction actually is and the difference between satisfaction and satiation and fullness.
It's at the top of my list.
So we both started in the same place.
Yeah, yeah.
What do you think? What came up for you is like the difference between them?
When I think about satisfaction, I think about like contentment. It's that feeling of, oh, that really hit the spot. When you eat something that's like the texture that you really want or the temperature that you want, it feels like it does more than just tick the box of food as fuel. It feels like it does more than that. That is what I think about when I think of satisfaction. And I think fullness is that biological signal that your stomach has had enough food and it's more about volume. But I think fullness feels different for me when I am satiated,
Mm.
I would say.
And what would you class as satiated? Like, how would you describe satiated?
It's really difficult to explain
It's hard, isn't
because
it?
it's a feeling. It's like a completeness.
Yeah. So I'm quite similar to you. When I think about satisfied, I lean more into like that mental side of it, like that you described of, oh, I really wanted that food and I've eaten it and I'm really content and happy about that. I got pleasure out of it. But so I associate like satisfaction with having some kind of pleasure too.
Mm.
So say you've got a craving for a certain type of food and then you eat it and you're like, oh, yes, that was exactly what I wanted, exactly how you described it. So it's mental. Fullness, I agree, is like that biological signaling of from the body, I've had enough. And I think for most of our listeners, fullness is going to be something that a lot of people can relate to if you've you're in the binge restrict cycle, because the extreme end of fullness is what you experience at the end of a binge. You can feel it like in your stomach area. That's like an uncomfortable fullness. It's really heavy, really dense. Satiation. Why can't I say that word? Satiation. That for me has like more of a feeling of a prolonged fullness or a prolonged contentment. Like it's sustainable, because I think you can be full from a meal and then actually you can end up hungry quite soon later, depending on what it is that you've eaten. Whereas I feel like satiation, that doesn't happen. It lasts more than fullness.
Yes, because if I eat something and I feel like it's maybe not something that I particularly wanted or something that I enjoy, then I will say less so now that I am recovered, because I don't experience scarcity around food. But particularly in recovery and prior to recovery, if I was eating and I didn't feel satisfied, I was more likely to be thinking about food. Even when I was full, I would still be thinking about, okay, what can I have next? Like, when am I going to be able to eat next? This sensation of fullness was there, but I wasn't ticking any other boxes within that experience. And then I would feel restless around food. Like, the satisfaction piece allowed that feeling of being complete when I'd finished a meal. Done and I'm good, and now I can carry on with my day until I start to feel hungry again. It's like a mind and body nourishment.
Did you feel like in recovery, earlier days of recovery, that you didn't feel as satiated from food for as long?
Yes.
Yeah, same. Because that's what I was thinking about. Like when at a certain point in my recovery earlier on, I could have like a meal, be satisfied from it mentally, and be full from it. Like I could physically feel I was full from it. And maybe within 2 hours time, still feel like I needed like another big meal, because I wasn't satiated. Like I didn't stay satiated for a long time. And I think that was because of years worth of restriction and under eating, that actually at that time I did just need more food, more fuel, more calories. Whereas now, if I've had a meal that I'm quite full from and satisfied, I can go longer before I need to eat another meal again.
Yes.
It depends also. It depends on the time of the month, though. Sometimes around my period, that's not the case. But
So right off.
generally speaking.
Yeah. When I listen to what you're saying now, I'm thinking like, okay, especially probably the first at least 4 months of recovery when I was eating and trying to incorporate permission, I think it can be so difficult to access satisfaction when you're also dealing with food rules and you're dealing with food guilt, like all those things that can interfere with that, because you're trying to eat foods that you have scarcity around and you're trying to eat in abundance. And so you're trying to incorporate foods that you have these rules around, but those rules are very much still there. So you're eating it and you're like, oh, that was really nice. But you've still got that part of you that's, should I have eaten that? Did I eat too much? Maybe I should like avoid this. And so that did interfere with trying to really, really hone in on what satisfaction actually felt like for me. Because I didn't realize that I didn't really know what it felt like, because I used to eat foods based on what fit into my calories and what was high in protein. And then I would eat a meal and I'd be full and it would be a healthy, clean meal, so to speak. And I'd be sat there thinking, why do I still want other food? What's wrong with me? And it's because you're not eating things that you enjoy. You're not eating food that's satisfying. You're not eating enough carbohydrates. You have all this other stuff, all these other factors that can hinder and interfere with your ability to even register satisfaction and begin to understand what that feels like.
I agree with you. I think that satisfaction for a lot of people in recovery is a really new like concept. It's really alien because if you've spent either side of it, right? So if you've spent a lot of your life restricting and following diets, you have been eating in a way that you feel like you should eat or according to some kind of external rules, that you haven't probably really allowed yourself to question what foods you like and allow yourself to actually eat those foods. On the flip side of that, if you've been more of like a permitter and or binging a lot, you might fall into thinking that you have experienced more satisfaction from food. But actually, I don't think when we binge, we don't really experience satisfaction from the food when we binge. I think a lot of people would probably agree with that because of the way we eat it in such a secretive way, in such a fast way, so much all at once that it's almost, there's no chance to really stop and take in what it is that we're eating and enjoy that experience because it's actually quite a stressful experience to binge. It's not pleasurable, is it? So I think when we start to move away from either of them and get to a place of exploring our food preferences and what we like and what makes us satisfied and not, can feel like really confusing and really new.
You're right. As you said, it's alien. It's not something that you're used to experiencing, which is why I think it came a lot later for me in recovery. And I think it's something that I continue to explore. Like, how does that make me feel? Did I enjoy that? Am I enjoying what I'm eating right now?
I think actually what you say about it can be something that you're still working on and exploring. I actually think it's a really good point, like a good avenue to go down. Because I think satisfaction can change like over our lifetime and even throughout the seasons and throughout the months in our menstrual cycle, if you're someone who does menstruate, right? Because I definitely know that like my food preferences in the summer are different to my food preferences in the winter and what I get satisfaction out of. So in the summer, like I really love smoothies. I really love a smoothie bowl.
It's too cold.
I love it. Whereas in the winter, like, I absolutely do not want to touch the smoothie bowl at all. I'm afraid it just makes me feel cold and I feel like I almost feel like hungrier. I've had a smoothie bowl in the winter before and I've actually felt hungrier afterwards because I felt like so cold that I felt like I needed food to, I don't know, warm me back up. I don't know. So it changes. And then in the winter, I will like having like hearty stews and
Give me
soups.
lasagna and spag bowl. Yes, please.
Lasagna and spag bowl, I'll have them all year round, but I do get the point. But yeah, it changes through the seasons. It even changes through the months. So I know that definitely around my period, I absolutely need more carbohydrates and I am so much more like satisfied from eating carbohydrates. Like I eat carbohydrates all month round, like every day, but particularly around my period, it's like I need them. If I didn't have a certain kind of dodginess or heavy comfort kind of feeling to the food I'm eating, I'm not satisfied. And there has been times where I have sent Will to the shops at 10 o'clock at night to be like, I just need you to go and get me some mashed potato. Just that's what I need right now.
Fair. Yeah, because you're a mashed potato lover, aren't you? We've talked about this.
Any potato lover.
I do. I love a chip. Can't get enough chips. I'm curious then, because we talk about satisfaction changing and evolving and things like that. Would you say that your food preferences changed, as in foods that you used to love perhaps pre-recovery, that you would maybe lean towards binging on, you don't so much get the same satisfaction from? Because the reason I asked is because I had this a few weeks ago. What I found was in the supermarket and I found these chocolate wafer bars, like, you know, like the Tunnocks ones in the like red and gold.
My granddad loved them.
Like, yeah, okay. So I haven't had those for years and years. And I saw them in the supermarket and I was like, oh, I'm going to have those. I just remember these being like my favorite thing. I'm going to have one this afternoon with a cup of tea on the sofa and I'm so excited for it. And I was really disappointed because it just did not do it for me. I bit into it and I was like, yeah, this is nice, but I'm not getting that. Oh, this is so good. I remember how amazing this was. This isn't doing it. I can feel it. I don't think it was the texture. I don't know whether I was just reminiscing on something, that like nostalgic thing. But I remember saying to Stuart, I was like, I don't think I really am bothered by these anymore. I think I'm over this. I'm not getting that totally ticked the box for me. And now I'm satisfied until I cook dinner in a few hours. Because I am now recovered and food feels safe, I was able to just be like, oh, that didn't really do it, but that's fine. I'll wait for dinner. If I was pre-recovery, it would have led to me like back and forth in the kitchen, picking at food, trying to reach that satisfaction that I didn't realize I was doing at the time. And in recovery, I would have eaten something else to try and access that satisfaction, but it would have been done with permission versus this, oh my God, I need to reach this.
It's making me wonder, the foods I used to binge on, have I changed in terms of my preference with them? Not really. Like the foods I used to binge on, I still really like those foods. My experience of them is different though, because, so for example, pizza is one of the foods I used to binge on. When I used to binge on pizza before, there was so much anticipation beforehand for that pizza. And it was almost like the analogy of if you hold your breath for so long and then you have to breathe, you're taking a huge breath and your breathing is really dysregulated. That's how I felt around pizza. It'd be like, as soon as I had the opportunity to eat it, I'd eat it in such that kind of frantic, dysregulated way, because it was like me trying to catch my breath, but in the form of pizza, if that makes sense.
It does.
Whereas now I still really enjoy pizza, but there isn't that kind of, if I'm going to have a pizza for tea, there isn't the level of like anticipation and build up beforehand. And when I eat it, there isn't like the urgency around it. It's much more regulated. And actually I do get more satisfaction out of eating it really, because it isn't dysregulated.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that hasn't changed. But what I have noticed, and this has probably only really been in the last year, that I do crave more sweet things than I used to.
Oh, okay.
And I've never really had a sweet, I wouldn't really say I'm someone that has a sweet tooth. I'm more savory, but I do sometimes now feel like, yeah, I just want to finish my meal with something sweet, which I never used to have before. And I don't know whether that's just like a natural change or whether it's because that change has happened like in the last year where it wasn't clear cut like before and then after recovery. It's just been something that's developed. No.
Yeah, I'm like that. I need something sweet. I grew up in an environment where you had dinner and then you waited like an hour or two and then you had dessert.
Really?
Yeah, and I remember when I went over when
I've never heard that before.
I know when I met Stuart and I went over to his family's house for lunch, which was just already anxiety inducing anyway. And she literally cleared the table after dinner and brought pudding out. And I remember being like, whoa, what you doing there? What's happening? Where's my what? I found it so weird. But I've actually noticed that I feel more satisfied when I eat dinner and then I eat something sweet straight away.
Oh,
I actually find
interesting.
that feels more satisfying for me. No idea why. Doesn't really matter. And obviously, if I'm like really full, then I would wait. But that is something I have observed over the past few months. That again, as you say, it's something that's evolved.
Yeah.
With no rhyme or reason. And it's information that I've taken.
I think figuring out satisfaction is a really personal thing and can be quite fun if you allow it to be quite fun, because it's like an opportunity to just experiment with different things and see what works and what doesn't work for you. And I think it's not always about which food you specifically feel satisfied from, but also playing around with like textures and temperatures and even how something's presented for you and all of these and food combinations, I think is where you can really start to explore your personal satisfaction level. I know I'm someone that I needed like a carbohydrate in a meal because one, that makes me like satisfied mentally to have the texture like and the stodginess or the heaviness of density, whatever word you want to use. But also it keeps me satiated for longer. Will's quite different in that he feels better in himself when he eats like more like protein heavy meal and less carbs. And he feels great off that. when I eat a meal like that, I can feel quite full of it, but in an hour's time, I'm probably going to be hungry. And I'm
Yeah.
also probably going to finish that meal being a bit like, there was something missing. Will doesn't experience that. And that's fine because everyone's different. But I think you have to explore what is right for you. And it is difficult to do that when you have all these food rules in there.
Yes. I wholeheartedly agree with all of that. I like that you highlighted that we are all different and what is right for someone else may not be right for you.
Like textures is a big one for me, that it's not something like for recovery. I never even thought about textures in food at all.
Same.
Like, whereas now I and through the process of recovering, covering and experimenting with satisfaction, I've realized that textures is important for me. I like to have a crunch somewhere in my meal. I also like things to be saucy.
Do you? I'm so the opposite.
Yeah, I like things to be really saucy. If I'm having a curry, like you better give me lots of sauce, and I hate it when it's like slightly dry and there's lots of like bits of rice that are dry. I'm like, no, and load on the sauce.
But what about like because when I have pasta and if I have tomato sauce with it, I have to put it on the side and then maybe
Oh
dunk it.
no, I want it
Are you
fully
like a,
in, all
you like a
mixed. Yeah,
mixer?
yeah,
See, and this is the thing, you don't know this kind of stuff until you really start to pay attention and you notice but you obviously do it in a way that's more curious. As you said, it's quite an exciting thing to explore. Because I am the same as you. I really need a crunch in something. If I'm having a yogurt, I need to put either some nuts or some chocolate chips or something. Like I need something that I'm gonna get a crunch from.
yeah.
This is why I don't like bananas, because they're too soft. Gross.
Bananas are a funny one, right? I feel like,
I hate bananas so much. People think I'm so
yeah, they
weird.
really divide people.
Do they? I feel like I know very few banana haters.
Really? So this might be because so I used to work at, when I used to work at Beat, we did groups for like parents whose children had ARFID, and bananas was one of the most commonly discussed foods around like the adverse kind of sensory reactions people had to bananas.
You know what? It's the smell. It's the fact that you peel it and then there's the stringy bits left in the peel. The taste is mushy. The texture, like, and if Stuart's had one, I'm like, stay far away from me. Don't come near me.
I got given as a snack sometimes as a kid, which you're going to absolutely repulse that here. I used to get given a bowl of mashed up banana with sugar on.
That is rancid. Did you enjoy it?
Did as a kid. I had it a couple of months ago and I was like, it's slimy.
Couldn't pay me enough to eat that. Just the thought of it gives me shivers.
I think Slimming World, like they have all these stupid rules about you can eat a full banana but not a mashed banana and all this that kind of stuff too.
That's a
So
thing.
yeah, so
Why?
they have.
What
So for
changes
me,
when you mash
bananas
it?
are a thing.
But even like you say, oh, you may not this food like this, but you may like it if it's prepared like this.
Yeah,
Things like that, or
exactly.
like that is that you obviously you don't know till you start
Yeah,
testing things out.
I think this is where if we look at like intuitive eating as a model and like the principles of it, this is where I think sometimes like the discover the satisfaction factor
Mm.
and the kind of gentle nutrition factor can intersect with each other. So if you were trying to incorporate more vegetables into your diet, for example, as part of gentle nutrition, but actually you're someone that's not really a vegetable lover, but you know that they've got good stuff in them. So you want to have some of them in your diet. It's like, how can you make vegetables more enjoyable for you? Can you cook them in a certain way? You don't have to boil them like we probably all had as kids. So they're just like mush. Can you cook them in a different way? Can you pair it with something that actually just the texture's like more fun for you or the flavor combination works better? I like how these two principles can work together.
There was something I was going to say, and I'm not going to be able to get it out. So you're going to need to come in with your like neat bow thing and just tie it up nicely for me. So I was thinking as well about satisfaction because you related it to pleasure, right? When you feel satisfied to a meal, it's very pleasurable. Becca looks really excited already, and I haven't finished what I'm saying remotely. And a lot of what I struggled with through my eating disorder was a lot of self-loathing and a lot of feeling unworthy. And so as a result of that, I didn't, and this was all subconscious. This wasn't in my cognitive mind. It's hindsight that I see this, and in recovery that I noticed this, and that I didn't feel like I was deserving of pleasure that was accessible through food. For me, feeling satisfied and experiencing that pleasure around food felt like something I wasn't allowed to experience. And so if I had binged, I would punish myself and be like, no, you're not having that. You will sit at lunch and you will have a salad that consists of lettuce and tomatoes and this. You're not allowed to add this. You're not allowed to have that. You will sit and this is what you get for doing what you did by eating XYZ. Food was very much my avenue of accessing punishment for myself. So I became very used to using it as a tool to feel worse about myself. So the idea of feeling pleasure and satisfaction was so far removed from what I had been experiencing.
Yeah. So
I think I was going to say that.
No, I thought you were going to go down
Okay.
a different avenue, which we can go down,
Okay.
like park that one
Sure.
for now. I find it really interesting when you explain then, and you've done it a few times in the podcast, where you go into that kind of explaining how that internal dialogue is to yourself. And I think it's really helpful to hear because it really highlights like actually how nasty that voice can be and how critical
Yes.
it can be. And I think it's quite helpful to like hear that out loud to witness it, right? That was just like a side note, a side observation that I wanted to pick up on.
That. Yeah.
But I would imagine it's helpful, relatable for people to hear. What was the thing I was actually going to say? That was the side note, and I've got distracted with the side.
I was going to say to you, write it down, but I thought, no, she'll be fine. She knows what she's doing. She's a pro. I was talking about punishment and pleasure, and yeah.
I remembered.
Okay.
I was going to say, at that point in your life, you know how you said you wouldn't allow yourself satisfaction through pleasure through food. What was your relationship like with pleasure and allowing yourself to be satisfied, like in other areas of your life?
I feel like I'm in therapy. I love this. Becca, what did pleasure feel like in other areas of my life? I felt very unsatisfied in life in general, I would say. I had very high expectations for myself and I wasn't meeting those expectations. I think I had very few experiences of pleasure and satisfaction outside of food. And I think I just very much felt like if I could just get my eating in line, if I could just be this certain way, if I could get my body to a certain point, then I would feel good. Then I'm allowed this and this. But until I get there, until I'm deserving of that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, it was like there was no right or wrong answer to the question. It was more just out of curiosity because it was something that I thought about when I was like reflecting on satisfaction with food. That I think if we can explore other areas of our life and like, what is my relationship like to pleasure and satisfaction in other areas of my life? Obviously, I don't want to make too general a statement, but I would imagine that for a lot of people who are experiencing like this kind of disordered relationship with food or an eating disorder or binging, that there may be some challenges in other areas of life too. And that was my experience as well. Because sorry, my voice went funny there. It was like you said, like your self-worth was so low that you didn't believe that you deserved to have that satisfaction. And I think if we can feel like that in one area of our life around food, then it's likely that it is going to bleed into other areas of our life. I think it's Janine Roth who talked about it, and she says, I don't remember the exact word for word of a quote, but it's something like, how you are with food is how you are in other areas of your life too. And I think like sex is a really good example because it's an area where you can actually look and go like, how do I feel about like being satisfied in this area of my life? How do I feel about receiving pleasure and enjoying something? And how do I feel about experimenting with that pleasure and actually asking for what I want and receiving what I want and allowing myself that? I think obviously you can do that in many other areas of your life. The reason I mention sex is because I think it's a really easy, maybe a challenging avenue to go down, but it's a good one to draw parallels with.
Yes, because it's vulnerable. There's a level of intimacy there, isn't there? I think it's a good place to draw parallels because, as you say, it's understanding what you like versus what you think you should be enjoying and being able to voice that for yourself and
Yeah.
being okay with that for yourself to then ask
Yeah.
and relay that to someone else.
It doesn't have to just be that area. That's just one like parallel to draw, but it could be any other area of your life. Like, do I allow myself to engage in any hobbies that I enjoy, or do I feel like I don't deserve that? Am I satisfied in my job? Do I like my job or not? And if you don't enjoy your job or you don't allow yourself to engage in any of those hobbies, then there's probably a bit of conflict in terms of like maybe what you would like, but what your reality is, and then bringing in what you think you deserve. All of that is a lot, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that could be going on in many areas of our life, not just with food. And food can also then come in as do you know what? I actually can't deal with all that conflict and all of facing all of that. So I'm going to eat to numb and escape it
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. This kind of stuff spills into so many different areas of our lives. And I think, like, for me, that always showed up in food behaviors. My relationship with food at any given time in my life was a massive indication of how I was feeling, how I was coping, or lack thereof. I was thinking about practical tools for people who are like, okay, how do I even begin to navigate satisfaction? And I was thinking about observing how things feel when you eat certain foods, that kind of checking in and that tapping into how you're feeling before you eat and during and after you eat. Then it did make me think that if I'd have been given that tool to think about, I think I would have really struggled because feeling satisfied, noticing satisfaction in my body meant paying attention to my body. And that was something that I really had to approach with caution because a lot of my binging was trying to escape my body, right? Because for me, satisfaction is presence, isn't it? It's being able to be in a moment and really figure out how you're feeling and doing that when you don't really know how you feel or it doesn't feel safe to check in and be that connected with your body in an autonomous way can feel quite activating in some ways. So not that I necessarily have helpful information for navigating that, but I just wanted to name it for anyone who might be listening and thinking, oh my God, the idea of having to check in with how I feel and paying attention with things like that can feel quite overwhelming or, oh gosh, please don't make me do it. That I think this is something that you can seriously do very slowly.
I was actually thinking like, I think my experience was different with satisfaction because you speak about satisfaction being quite jarring because you've got to check in with your body and how it feels. I can see that from a perspective of doing the hunger fullness exploration thing. With satisfaction, for me, it feels really mental. Like it didn't activate that for me because it wasn't about checking in on how I felt in my body. It was like, am I enjoying this? It just felt much more mental for me.
So let me ask you this. Can you just expand on your relationship with fullness during your eating disorder? What was your experience with fullness?
My experience with fullness, that was more activating.
Okay.
That definitely. So if I was working on checking in with my fullness and having to pay attention to that I found more distressing to do because of what you said, kind of attention to my body and kind of that psychosomatic experience of like when I feel full, it triggers these thoughts for me. So that was a harder aspect for me. But that didn't come in for me when it came to satisfaction because it was more mental. So I think actually we have the same experience, perhaps from different angles.
Yes, because I think I needed to really cultivate more safety in my body from a felt sense first to repair the broken trust. And I could expand from there. I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
It's so difficult because none of this is ever like textbook, is it? It's not like I did this and then I did this and then at this point this happened. So it's
It's
always
like
so
those graphs
hard.
where it's like, when it has like recovery is not like this. It's like not a linear point. It's more of
That.
someone's just scribbled all over the page.
Oh, I know. It's so true though, isn't it? It is, and everyone's page
Yeah.
looks a little bit different.
But what I thought you were going to say when you started talking about pleasure, you were like satisfaction and pleasure. What I thought you were going to go down the route of was talking about the role of dopamine in that.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I thought you were.
It's a good point, actually.
And this is something I think we touched on the book, touched on this person's work, one of the early episodes. I think it was the episode we did around like food obsession, food addiction, and we touched on it very briefly, but it's
Oh, Anna Lemke.
yeah, Anna Lemke. I'm
Lemke.
not sure how you pronounce it, but the woman who wrote the Dopamine Nation book. I was thinking about like her concept of the role of dopamine and how it could come into satisfaction here. And I know her book focuses on it is in the context of addiction. So I'm not necessarily saying that binging is an addiction, but I think maybe some of these ideas could be helpful or just food for thought, basically. Excuse the pun. But she talked about how dopamine works on like a seesaw system, that on one side is pleasure and the other side is pain. We want to try and find a place of balance, of like homeostasis. So higher the pleasure that you experience, obviously that seesaw is going to tip, that the more pain you need to experience in order for you to find homeostasis again, which kind of makes sense if you think of it like a seesaw. And then she talks about how repeated flooding of dopamine, which might come through the buildup of a binge and then the binging, how that can really dysregulate our dopamine baseline. Actually, we tend to sit more on the side of pain in general, which could be why I think, you know, how you said, actually, I was just generally unsatisfied in most areas of my life because we start to slide into pain. Our like dopamine receptors are less sensitive, all of that kind of stuff. But she also talks about how like dopamine is less so about actually the thing, like whether it's the food, the binge, or the drug that she's talking about. It's less actually about, you get less dopamine from actually having that experience. It's more like the anticipation and the build up and the craving and the desire for all of that. So you have this big build up, which is what we were talking about earlier, to the binge. You have the binge. It doesn't really scratch that itch. Like you're not really that satisfied from it. And your dopamine system is now sitting like unbalanced, more in the place of pain. So then you go back into that cycle again of craving, because the craving's where you're getting the dopamine from, the seeking of it. And I think that's quite a helpful thing to think about. I don't think binging is only about dopamine, not at all. I think there's so many other factors that go into it that like we talk about in all of these episodes. But I do wonder, does it play some role in this kind of insatisfaction like we're talking about here?
It's definitely a piece of the puzzle. I would feel more excited if I knew I was going to go home and binge. It would get me through the day. It would change my mood. And then it never quite hits. It was the build up to it. It was the promise of
Absolutely.
something.
Can relate to that. Maybe the first mouthful or two, but after that, not really. And then afterwards, I'd feel like really let down.
Yeah.
And that would start that cycle again.
Yeah, because you've
I'd
tipped the
feel
seesaw, haven't
dissatisfied
you?
for a while. You've
So
tipped
then
the
you're
seesaw,
trying to
yeah.
go to the other side again, and it's this back and forth.
Yeah. But what's tricky with this is, so she talks about the issue with the overstimulation of pleasure and dopamine. And she talked about like dopamine fasting, which I don't necessarily think is the right thing in the terms in the context of binge eating, because I actually think it's less about taking things away and it's more about bringing things in
Yes.
with eating
agreed.
disorder recovery. So I think her concept's useful, but maybe like her proposal for what you should do is probably more applicable to like drug addiction, because that is again the context that she's more more referring to.
Yeah.
What I was going to say is my original point was, I think it's really interesting because she's talking about like overstimulation is the problem. And then you come to like models like intuitive eating, which are like actually understimulation is the problem because you're not allowing yourself to have pleasure
Yeah.
from food. And you need to have pleasure from food. Food isn't just fuel. It's not just nutrition. It's all of these other things that bring joy and satisfaction into your life, like socializing and taste and like all of this. So if you're someone who's trying to recover and you're being bombarded with this information, you're like, so this way, eat less of that. Oh, but this way, I should eat more of that. And it can feel really confusing. What the hell? Which way do I go? And you might say that's actually about finding a middle ground, but that's not easy to do if you're someone that is struggling with an eating disorder.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I do, in my personal experience and an experience of working with people, find the understanding what might be going on with dopamine quite helpful and interesting. But I do lean on the side of thinking that actually the intuitive eating approach of permission to have all foods and allowing them all into your life to make sure that you are experiencing pleasure with food has been more effective for recovery.
Yes, I would agree. From my experience and from working with clients, it makes me think of it in a similar way with rest, in that I notice it for myself that sitting on the sofa whilst also thinking about everything that I need to do isn't true rest, because it doesn't feel like permission to rest.
Good example, good parallel.
I'm sitting down because I'm tired, but I'm there thinking, okay, I should probably put a wash on, and then I probably need to unload the dishwasher, and then I need to do this. And It's not giving myself permission to switch off. It's just making me feel of all the things I should be doing or could be doing that I'm not doing. And then you wonder why you don't feel rested. You're not actually giving yourself permission to switch off and to not think about the next task and the next job that needs doing. That is not resting. Your brain is still going. This is like the mental load, isn't it? It's all the stuff that's going on behind the scenes that has an impact.
I love that analogy. I think that's such a good parallel to draw.
I was coming off the back of the analogy that you did a great one in one of the last episode that we did.
That was really good because it is the same as,
I've got to think of one now.
Oh, I'm going to eat this chocolate bar, but I'm also going to be thinking about what I can do later to burn it off, how many calories are in it, what I can eat later to compensate. It's the exact same.
Yeah, the way that you're thinking about your experience has just as much of an impact as the actual experience itself.
Yeah. And I think that's helpful because actually, if you have been like immersed in all this disordered thoughts around food for so long, it can be hard to see that with food, see that's what's going on with food. But if you can take a concept like rest and see that makes sense in rest, it's a really accessible way of understanding that concept to then pull it across to food. So thank you, Katy. I think that's an absolute gem that we should finish on.
You are welcome. We should finish there. Let's go out on a high. As always, let us know your thoughts and how you experience satisfaction. Because although we had some points that were similar, we had things that weren't so much. And that's always like it when that happens. Because hopefully we will still end up relating to people.
Yeah. So, let us know. We always love to hear people's feedback. So yeah, please do share.
Thanks so much, guys. We'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.